Hello everybody, my name is Sophia. Welcome to my channel. I post reading wrap-ups, crochet vlogs, regular vlogs, and everything in between. Today we are going to be talking about all the books that I read in November, so grab a drink. I have my matcha from David's Tea in a cute little new container that I just got from Winners, and I'm very excited to chat with you today, so cozy up and let's talk books. This month was a pretty big reading month for me. I read 9 books. 7 of them were audio and 2 of them were physical. Just a disclaimer as well, if you see me looking down, I'm just looking at my notes because otherwise I won't be able to remember my thoughts on each book. Just an aside from October, somehow I forgot to mention that I listened to, I'm always confused on how to talk about it. I read an audiobook, listened to an audiobook, Lapvona by Tessa Moshfegh. Somehow I forgot to mention this. This one I ended up giving 3 stars. I've never read anything else by Tessa Moshfegh actually, which is shocking because it seems like they're right up my alley. But I started with this one, probably not the best idea. This to me felt gross for the sake of being gross. I don't know if there was a big point to this book, like the plot. There was a plot, but I was like, okay. Like, I felt like if the plot didn't have these disgusting elements, then it wouldn't be memorable. And then with the disgusting things, I'm just like why? Like, I'm all for like horror books and stuff like that, but this was just like gross. Like, it was, yeah, I don't know, if you've read it, you'll understand. But anyways, I just wanted to mention that one because somehow I forgot about it in my last reading wrap-up. And I actually did end up DNFing 3 books this month, which is not typical for me, but I was just sort of busy anyway, so I didn't want to be currently reading a book and have it like pull me down from starting other things. The first one I DNF'd is called Dallergut Dream Department Store. I never heard of this one before. I thought it would be like an adult book, but I think it was even geared towards like really young children, because when I looked, I saw it at Chapters randomly after I'd already DNF'd it, and it was like in the like 9 to 12 age. I don't feel like it belonged there. I'm not sure, maybe they shelved it wrong, but I thought this would be an adult book. This to me just felt like it went really slow. I just didn't really see where the plot was going. I think I DNF'd it around 30% because we were already there, and I guess it's more of like a philosophical like outlook on life and our dreams and stuff like that, but it wasn't right for me at that time. And that's usually why I DNF books, because it's really just like the time that I read them, because if I start them some other time it might be a completely different experience, you know? The second book I DNF'd was Rule of Thoughts by James Dashner. I've read Eye of Minds twice, which is the first book in this series. I love that book, it's one of my favorites, but again, I think I just was in that world for too long. I finished Eye of Minds on audiobook and then immediately jumped into Rule of Thoughts. So sometimes when I'm with characters for too long, I start to get annoyed with them and stuff. I think that was the case here. I was just in that world for too long and then I DNF'd it. And I don't know where it's going either. Like, Eye of Minds was really good, but I don't see how that story can continue as well. The third book I DNF'd and the final book I DNF'd for this month was called Paradise of the Damned. Paradise of the Damned was about the look for like the city of gold, like El Dorado, and like how that's been going through history. It is really well researched obviously, but it's so incredibly dense. And when I listen to audiobooks, I just want something that I can quickly fly through. This was so dense and like reading like a history like textbook or something that I just couldn't really get into it, and it was really hard for me to follow what was going on. It was really well written and stuff and intriguing, but I just couldn't finish it. This is more of like a book that you could pick up and read like 10 pages here, 10 pages there, so certainly not like a binge or anything. So those are all the books that I did end up DNFing this month. Now if we get into the books that I actually read. The first book I read this month was The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This book follows Surin, who was living with humans before she got banished or just not allowed anymore. And then she lived in the forest. And then the love interest-ish, although it doesn't really get developed so much, is named Oak. He's like a half, I forget what they're called, but he's like the thing that has like the human upper and then like goat legs or something. I don't know, he has like hairy legs and like cloved feet, like he has fur and everything. And Surin herself, she has like it's fangs and stuff, so it's some type of fae book, so she's some type of monster herself. So then her and Oak, they used to be close when they were young, they drifted apart, and then now they reconnect and they have to go on an adventure to the Ice Needle Citadel, I believe it's called, in the north to defeat Lady Nor, who has taken over. If I sound confused when I'm explaining this, it's because I am. When I was reading this synopsis, I was like, okay, like I didn't even remember this happening. The book, it was really hard for me to understand and to follow. Holly Black wrote much more popular books, Cruel Prince and The Wicked King, which are in this world called Elfheim. So this is separate, but it's in that world. And I really felt like, after learning that, I felt like this was geared towards fans of those novels. So this book really lacked on world building, I thought. It did feel like a sequel to another book, where I know it wasn't, but that's kind of what it felt like. It did have some fun riddles. I liked the riddles that were in this book. I won't say them because it's gonna ruin a bit. It won't ruin a lot, but there's lots of monsters in it. One thing that I don't like is, and I know that they're not human, they're fae, but they're written like they talk like human and have every other human behavior. I really don't like it when people do, like, it says she bared her teeth or she hissed at them. I'm just like, ooh, what are we doing, guys? Like, it would constantly describe the main character, Soren, I don't know, as like baring her teeth and hissing, and this was like a good thing. And I'm like, I just don't really like that. And there was also, it was supposed to be like romance. I don't need like active romance, if you know what I mean, but it was not. I'm not sure. And she kept falling for stuff. Like, I know that these like monsters that she's getting influenced by are like extremely powerful and stuff, but it did feel like she was falling for stuff and being a little bit naive. Maybe the main character, she would like, it would say, oh, did you not know he's just using you? And then she would like completely run away. And I'm like, well, you know that the person who just told you that was your enemy, and you still just like ran away from him without even asking him or like seeing how good of a lie he could come up with. So I just felt like she was a little bit, I don't know, dense or whatever. So that was Stolen Air. Not many thoughts on that one. I ended up giving that one 3.5 stars. Okay, the next one, I have some thoughts on this one. They're mostly negative. I read Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. This was also an audiobook. Oh, this book. This book follows Melody and Beat. Okay. So they have known of each other from when they were born, basically, but before they were born, their mothers, who were bandmates in this band called Steel Birds, which I did saw had a lot of connections to Fleetwood Mac. Like, I could see that it was probably based on Fleetwood Mac, or at least inspired by Fleetwood Mac. Their mothers had a falling out before they were born. They met once when they were 13. Melody is constantly described as awkward, and Beat is, oh, this charming man. So yeah, Melody has had a crush on Beat since they were 13 and they first met. So now they're 30. Let's remember that. They're in their 30s. Melody spends her time restoring novels, like old YA novels at a bookstore. So she's just a bookish girl. She's just an awkward bookish girl. I don't like this. And then Beat is like working for like his parents' foundation. They like, I don't know, they do foundation work. I don't know, I didn't like this book. Did anything that I just described to you sound like Christmas? Because nothing sounded like Christmas at all. This is called Wreck the Halls. The cover has mistletoe all over it and everything. Nothing about this book was Christmas. I really wanted like a cute Christmas romance, other than the fact that they said, oh, it's December 15th, and then, oh, it's Christmas Eve. Literally none of this had anything to do with Christmas, and unfortunately I do feel like the author or the publishing team literally just chose that title so that they could capitalize off people buying it and reading it without actually knowing that it's not a Christmas book, you know what I mean? Like, they were trying to capitalize off of the Christmas market rather than what their story is based on, because the story was not good. I'm sorry if I'm being negative. I yeah. So yeah, the book follows them trying to get their moms back together for like a reunion show because Beat is getting blackmailed and Melody just wants to do it because she likes Beat, I think. So throughout this book, Beat calls Melody Peach. I don't like that nickname, especially like it's maybe the situation is cute and I know every couple is different, but the way that it was used turned like it was so gross. He'd be like, it's just like, oh, I don't know. I didn't like it. I just didn't like that nickname. Also, in this book, there's two narrators. There's one for Beat's POV and then there's one for Melody's POV. The woman who was doing Melody's POV would make her voice sound like a man when Beat was talking from Melody's POV, but the way that it was done was just, I just didn't like it. Like you could tell that it was the same actress like putting on a man's voice. Sometimes this is done well. Just a note for this specific audio that I listened to was that was not done well at all, and it was kind of gross, especially when we were getting into the spicy scenes. I don't know how to describe it without being weird, but I didn't like it at all, the way that the voice acting was done for Beat from Melody's POV. The book was also much, much longer than it needed to be. The spicy scenes, if you want to call it that, were so immature and so gross to the fact that they would be like literally, I don't know if they had more than a conversation that didn't immediately move into like smut right after they had a conversation. It seems like every single thing, and I know that it's a romance book and I know that some people want that, but I just wanted like a cute Christmas romance, and this was like Christmas, and it wasn't even Christmas, it was just like I don't know, it was just like smut. I didn't like it. And yeah, as I said, it was so immature, and they're literally in their 30s. Like they would say, oh, I miss him so much, I haven't seen Beat, and it would be like 2 days later. I'm like, you can't not see him for 2 days without like literally being not able to move because you miss him so much. Maybe I've just never been in love, but I cannot see myself doing that ever. Yeah, literally one time I wrote it in my notes. Melody says, I haven't talked to Beat in voice breaks. Like it says voice breaks 3 days. 3 days? I'm sorry, 3 days. Oh gosh, it just really, this book, it would have been like whatever, but that's just the fact that it was marketed as a Christmas book when it had absolutely nothing to do with Christmas. And I also feel like it was just miscommunication trope between the mothers. Like nothing seriously bad happened. It was just like a man coming between them. I don't like the miscommunication trope personally, and I know that the moms weren't like the point of like the book, but it was still there, and they literally spent like 2 weeks together, and then Beat was thinking of proposing. He said they knew they were soulmates just living apart. I've never heard of something ending well when you propose after 2 weeks. Oh my god, it was crazy. So I ended up giving this book 2 stars. It probably would have been a bit higher, but as I'm gonna say again, marketed as a Christmas book, it genuinely, other than being set in December, had nothing to do with Christmas. So that is Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. I don't recommend that one. But if you're not looking for something Christmassy, maybe you'd like it, but just keep that in mind. I don't know if this month is going to be very positive. There weren't so many good reads. Jumping right into the next one, What the Hex by Jessica Clare. This book is said to be an enemies to lovers. It's not. Basically, it follows Penny and Willem when Penny is a familiar. This is like a witchy like world. I thought familiar was when someone can turn into an animal. That's what I thought familiar was. Apparently it's not. Familiar is just like someone who, like, in this book at least, the witches and warlocks just like take their magic so that they can do the magic. Anyways, it's like a step. So Penny wants to be a familiar really badly, but she's been waiting for a while. She's like in her 30s and she hasn't been able to find one. Here comes Willem. Oh, don't call him Will. He needs to go by Willem through like this whole book. He has done some bad thing, I don't even know, and he's not allowed to have a familiar. what a perfect match. What a perfect match these two are. Penny agrees that she'll do it because she just really wants to be a familiar and have experience, so she works as a familiar under Willem. The story just follows them. Oh, they're enemies. They loathe each other, and let's see if they can work together because someone's targeting Penny. That's the story. And oh, if some kissing happens along the way, that's what it says on Goodreads. So this is the first thing that I didn't really like, is that Willem is in his 300s and Penny is said to be in her 30s. But when you, like, I know that it's not actually weird, but she was talking about how he's like so old-timey, and because was born in what, like the 1700s or something, so he's like has all these like old-timey beliefs and stuff, and he just doesn't understand her. He always wears a suit, and then she's coming in and she like doesn't know anything. So the trope was kind of like older, mature man who's like a bit stuck in the past, and then ditzy young girl. So I know that their physical ages were fine and they're witches and stuff, but it did have like a little bit of an icky connotation when I was reading it. For me, I wouldn't also call this enemies to lovers. I would say that it's more like fake dating trope, because they have to fake date. They're never enemies. Like for me, enemies to lovers is like enemies, like you want to like attack each other and kill each other, like in fantasy romances sometimes. This was not that. They just didn't agree on some things, and then but they were still able to work together. So it was more just like acquaintances to romances, or boss student to romances, teacher student. I didn't like it. Also, there is public stuff going on, public smut, let's just say. I personally really don't like that. It makes me feel so icky. Like they were literally at a dinner in a restaurant with their friends, and then he's like doing stuff to her, and then they just have to go in the car after and get it out. Like this is so, like, I don't know, maybe romances aren't just for me. I usually don't read a lot of romances because like what is this? Seriously, what is this? Other than that, the actual storyline was quite boring. It was supposed to be high stakes, but it really did not feel like high stakes. And again, when it's within a romance and every single scene that these characters have together has to turn sexual in some way, I'm like, it's just not for me. So I ended up giving What the Heck's 3 stars. Those are my thoughts. Okay, next, at least we have something a little bit positive. We have 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Augustina Bazterrica. This book I actually bought for myself and I read it as a physical book. I don't know if I'm qualified to speak on these because I don't love short stories. I've never really loved short story collections. I just feel like I really like the story. Either I really like the story or I don't, but then it just doesn't get developed as much as I would like for the ones that I really like. So then I end up like kind of forgetting about them anyways. There was a few in this that stuck out to me. Basically, Augustina Bazterrica, she writes in another language, and then this is a translated work, which is good because I'm always trying to read more works from all around the world, like not just books that were written specifically in English, because a lot of people around the world have so many different perspectives on life and different ways that they write. And I know that that does get diluted a bit once they are translated and you can lose some essence of the story, but how am I to know? I can't speak every language, right? But this was a horror. Augustina Bazterrica, she always writes like horror-ish things. Her first novel was Tender is the Flesh. I read that in probably right when it came out, maybe 2020 or 2021. It is so good. It's disgusting, of course. It's kind of body horror, not really. Anyways, this isn't a review of Tender is the Flesh, but I do recommend that one. This one I wanted to read because I read Tender is the Flesh and I really liked it. So it's a short story collection that just has like a bunch of different stories, horror-ish stories. The quality of the stories themselves definitely did lull a bit in the middle. I found that the stories at the beginning and at the end were really good, and I know that all short stories do this, but the ones in the middle I was like, okay, like after every story. But yeah, the ones at the end specifically I liked more than the ones at the beginning and in the middle. I know she has another book coming out soon called The Unworthy, which is going to be like a horror nun one. I am so excited for that one. I can't wait. It's coming out, I believe, spring 2025. Definitely going to be pre-ordering that one. I want to give her all my money. So yeah, I ended up giving 19 Claws and a Blackbird 4 stars. Next, another audiobook, Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. This follows Mickey 7, who is an expendable. An expendable is it says disposable employee on a human expedition to colonize the world. Milflam? And basically, the expendable is someone that's sent on these colonizing missions because humans have destroyed Earth in this world and there's colonizing other worlds, and the expendable is someone who gets their whole body like coded into the computer so that they can do the dangerous jobs on colonizing a new planet, because whenever they die, their body is coded in or whatever, so they can just get reprinted and put out. I didn't know that this book existed until the trailer for the movie Mickey 17 came out, which has Robert Pattinson in it, and it is directed by the director of Parasite, and I really liked Parasite. So I picked this book up because I heard of that and I saw that it didn't have such a long wait list on Libby. And what happens in the book is that Mickey 7, they think he dies, they print Mickey 8, Mickey 7 comes back. What I thought it was going to be is like, philosophically, what are we to do? What makes you you? Is it who you are physically? Is it your mind? Is it your soul? Is it something else entirely? I thought it would be sort of philosophical yearnings about this, more like not a philosophical book, but like looked at through a fiction story. And I was like duped a little or whatever, because in the trailer for the movie, it shows a lot of court scenes, like court, they're basically deciding who gets to live, Mickey 7 or Mickey 8. That's what, or well, in the movie it's Mickey 17, because I don't know why they did that. So it has the court to decide who gets to live, which Mickey gets to live. This didn't have that at all. And I thought that it was really lacking, because basically from the beginning to, let's say, 50%, it was about this, like, who am I? Who are you? Now we're having different experiences and different thoughts. So I thought that it was really interesting when he was talking to the Mickey 8, because it's mostly from Mickey 7's POV, and he was talking to Mickey 8, and they're like, it's you talking to you because you share the same memories, but now you're making more memories. So who gets to live, right? That's really interesting. Halfway through, that went out the window, and it was basically not talked about anymore, and it changed to like an alien, there's aliens living on this planet that we're colonizing, and can we be friends with them? And so I was like, okay, so what happened to the original premise of the book? Like, it completely changed. I think the author wanted to write the Mickey 7 book about like this idea of who gets to live and who doesn't, and he also wanted to write an alien book. I feel like they should have been split. Like, it could have shared some of the same ideas, but I really didn't like where it went in the second half, personally. The audiobook itself did have really, really great voice acting, and it would like use sound effects and stuff, especially in the beginning. I really noticed that, so it was really fun to listen to, kind of like a movie or more of a performance rather than just reading a script. So yeah, I am really excited to see the adaptation after reading this book. I wonder if they're gonna take the alien stuff at all and move it into the movie, or if they're just gonna delete that completely. So the book overall, I ended up giving it a 4 stars because it wasn't horrible and I liked the thoughts that it would bring up, but I just thought that it kind of tapered off for the ending. Next, I read Field Notes on Love by Jennifer E. Smith. This follows Hugo, who is from Britain, and he's just been dumped by his girlfriend, Margaret Campbell, and they had a train journey across the United States book together, Margaret and Hugo, Margaret, the ex-girlfriend, and he still wants to take the train journey. Margaret says, yeah, you can have the train journey. The only catch, he needs someone named Margaret Campbell to come with him because it's under her name and it's non-transferable and everything. So here comes our girl main character, Margaret Campbell. She is conveniently 17, 18, like the same age as Hugo. They're doing this before first year of university, and yeah, so it was just like a YA romance style. It was really cute. I don't have anything bad to say about the romance because I thought this time it was really well done. So maybe for me, I'm more YA romance type of girl, like with no special scenes or minimal special scenes. It was just, overall, it was just really cute. One note that I have, well, I have more than one note, but is that Margaret Campbell, the new, like the main character, not the ex-girlfriend, has two gay dads. Cool, fun. Margaret lies to them and says that she's going on a trip with her new roommate for college, who's a girl. They say this is fine. She then says that she's going, when she like fesses up to them at the end, she says, yeah, I actually went with a boy. And they flip out because they're like, oh my god, you went with a boy, you slept in the same bed? I'm like, I know that they're concerned about maybe like pregnancy, but I was like, did you not think that she could have had, like, slept in the same bed and stuff could have happened with a girl? Like, especially since you guys are like two dads, do you not think that that could have happened with a girl? Like, I know that there's no pregnancy scares between girls, so maybe that's what they were concerned about, but I mean, a lot of other stuff can happen, and so that kind of felt just weird to me, and I was like, okay, so, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, so she wouldn't, there was no chance that she would have fell in love or done anything with the girl, but suddenly when it's a guy and she doesn't even say that they like each other, suddenly they were sleeping in the same bed and it's weird. That was kind of just like, in my head, I was like, oh, okay, so that's strange. And also, Hugo meets up with his ex-girlfriend Margaret after he's already like a thing with the new Margaret, and he's like talking with her and stuff, and he's like, oh, I just instinctively reached out to hold her hand. That felt a bit icky to me. I didn't like that. Maybe that's a bit of a spoiler, I don't think so, but I didn't like that. Like, and then he's like, I had to see her again to realize that I liked the new Margaret. I don't know if you did. So I ended up giving Field Notes on Love 4 stars. Next, unfortunately, we're about to something bad again. Meg and Joe by Virginia Cantra. This is a Little Women retelling. Full disclaimer, I really did not like this book. This follows Meg and Joe, obviously, of the Little Women. I have always loved Little Women. It's like one of my favorite comfort books. I went to the Little Women house in May of this year, which is in Concord, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. So that was like my own Little Women pilgrimage. I've read the book multiple times, watched the movie multiple times, specifically the one with Timothée Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan. That's my favorite one. So in this one, Meg is a stay-at-home mom and Joe is a failed writer-ish working at a restaurant, and she's also a food blogger. So that's her writing that she does. Meg has a husband who's not helpful-ish, I'm gonna say, and Joe has a crush on her much older chef. I'm gonna be honest, I skimmed a lot in the ending because this book was insanely long. I listened to it on audiobook. Tell me why the audiobook was 14 hours long for a Little Women retelling of the two sisters, not even the four sisters. I was like skimming, it was like on 2x speed. I was like doing everything else I possibly could while I was listening to it. So I don't have many notes on the end, but they also change Laurie's name to Trey, and he's a jerk. He's so mean in this. Well, he's not mean, he's just like a pushover. Like, he's like, buh, buh. He owns a car dealership. Like, what the hell? Laurie would never do that. There's also a lot of baby, like there's, like Meg has twins. There is so much baby talk in this, and I'm not saying that like in a romantic sense or something, but the actual babies like have dialogue in this book, and the way that the voice actor who's reading the audiobook does it is just like, I was like, oh, like every time I was like, what the hell are we doing? I could be like, uppies, mummy, uppies, like, and the old narrator of this book is saying this, and it would be like making the words like look like and sound like how babies would say, like, I sing a song for Christmas, mummy. Why did that need to be included? Like, I really didn't like that. For me, this really kind of put me off of Little Women. Like, and it's so sad because I was really excited for this, and I'm never reading a Little Women retelling again because I literally saw a picture of like Meg, who was, you know, from the movie, and I was like, ugh, I hate Meg. And then I was like, oh my god, I don't hate Meg. I was just thinking of this book. Like, I wasn't even thinking of the real Meg. It was just this book. Meg in this book is such a pushover. Like, she like has to do everything in the house because her husband's like not helpful. But the thing is, like, her husband would offer to help. He'd be like the kids would make a huge mess, and then they'd like laugh about it, and he'd be like, oh, like, let me clean it up, and she'll be like, no, I'll do it by myself. And then he'd be like, okay. And then she would just do it by herself. And then he would literally have already eaten McDonald's. And she's like, let me cook you some dinner. And she would like cook a whole steak and then be upset when he didn't eat it. It was like, okay, you saw that he ate McDonald's. And there was like, they had no communication at all. And also, why was she kind of low-key flirting with like other people? It just, she didn't take a stand for herself at all. Like, you never know the situation, but I feel like in the books, Meg, this was in like the 1800s or something, Meg and her husband shared responsibilities and he was helpful. In this book, which is supposed to be present day, he doesn't do anything, or at least she doesn't let him do anything. And she's like, I'm just so busy. Like, you think I have any time? I'm a twin mom. I don't have any time. And it's like, I know that moms don't have time, but you can also split the tasks. Like, you can let your husband do the laundry or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like salty of it or whatever, but that kind of really irked me. Also, Joe was like weird and like so into food, and I was like, I felt like we changed too much. Like, Joe was never into food in the original book. Maybe I just wanted to read Little Women instead, and I shouldn't have read a retelling, you know? So anyways, just take all of my opinions with a grain of salt. So I ended up giving this one a 2.5 stars for Meg and Joe. Next, something a little bit on the up and up, we have A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. This was an audiobook, and it's about, this actually has good representation because the main character has cerebral palsy. So I wanted to put that out there and say that, again, like I kind of said with authors from different places all around the world, to read books also from people with different life experiences. So this was good on that. I'm not sure the research that went into it from the author on people with cerebral palsy, but I thought that it was quite good. I have met people with cerebral palsy. I had a friend when I was younger who had cerebral palsy, a mild case, sort of like the main character has. So I am kind of familiar with it in a way, but I can't speak on it because I've never had, obviously, the experience for myself. This follows Prince Ren, and the place that they live is called Emberfall. So there's Prince Ren, and then Gray is like his bodyguard or whatever, and Prince Ren has a curse, like a witch has cursed him, and he has to have a girl fall in love with him, and he gets one try every season, and if the girl doesn't fall in love with him, then I can't say it, but something bad happens, and he needs to fall in love with someone to break the curse. Gray is allowed to go to the human world, the normal world, to get one girl, and basically kidnaps one girl. Okay, so I guess I can say the bad thing that happens is that he turns into like a beast, like a monster. It says that in the Goodreads, so I guess that's not as much of a spoiler as I thought it was. And the main character's name is Harper. She's from DC. She had a bit of a rough life, like her mother has cancer and her father left, I think, and so her and her brother pretty much left to fend for themselves, and she gets in the way of Gray, the bodyguard guy, when he's kidnapping a girl, so Gray ends up kidnapping her. The kidnapping thing was quite icky. I learned afterwards that this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which I didn't know, so I guess it's kind of supposed to be like when the Beast like kidnaps Belle, which in and of itself, that's like icky already, but this, yeah, that was kind of like gross. I didn't like that. And then she would be like, spoiler alert, it's like a romance, okay, between Ren, there's too many names similar, Ren and Harper have like a bit of a romance thing going on, and she'd be like, oh, you practiced with all the girls before me. This is like, I don't know, I didn't like that, and I was like, okay, all these girls before were kidnapped, and some of them were killed, and you're just acting as if it's like a jealousy thing that he's been with girls, and you don't realize that he's like actively kidnapped girls. Like, I know he had to break the curse. Bit icky. The voice acting in this was really good, I will say that. Note, the passage of time, or like understanding how much time has passed, is quite confusing in this, because it would say that it's been like so many seasons that he's had to do this, and that time passes like more slowly within the castle walls or something. I don't truly understand it, so I'm probably not explaining it well. But then they would spend a lot of time in the castle, and then they would go out, and it would appear as though the same amount of time has passed. But then also, it's like this big world, like Emberfall is like a big castle, and it has like all these grounds, and then outside there's like villages and stuff. But then they're going on like journeys to like other enemy like castles and stuff. And I was like, okay, I need a map, because how close are these together? They were doing this on horseback, and they were getting like there and back within like days, it seems like. So I just didn't really understand the passage of time. Otherwise, their journey times was just not explained at all. Like, they would somehow call someone, there's no phones, they would like call their enemy and say come, and then it would say, and she's coming tomorrow morning. Okay, so how did the letter or whatever get all the way there, and then how is she gonna, and then let her get back, and how is she gonna be here tomorrow morning? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, okay, so if we're riding on horseback, shouldn't this be like days long journeys? And if we only have one season, why are we going on like this epic adventure and stuff? Also, it did have a bit of a trope of she's not like the other girls. Literally, when it was like she wasn't, like, he kidnapped all the other girls, but she somehow is, she's the one to break the curse. So it has to be that she's not all the other girls, but it did kind of was like, you know, she didn't fall in love with me immediately, and like she actually stands up for herself. So it wasn't Harper's fault. Like, it was obviously like Ren's fault and the author a bit, but it didn't really feel like pro girl or whatever. Also, very big warning for the audiobook, breathing noises. When Ren turns into the monster, spoiler alert, I guess, there's chapters where it's just like like the voice actor is just like doing that into the microphone for like an obscene amount of time, to the point where I was like, what the heck is going on? It's like Harper, like stuff like that, and I was like, what is this? So I'm gonna say spoiler alert for this, but I'm gonna mention it anyways. Like, at the end of the book, she was like, touch the monster. Ren, it's me, Harper. And then he would like calm down, because she's the only one who could calm him down. He'd be like, don't do this, it's not you. Like, it was a little bit of like, I can fix him energy. Or like, stop, this is not you, you know what I mean? Like, so it was a bit of that at the end, and I was like, ooh, what are we doing here? But nonetheless, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars, which isn't that high, but I felt like this book was just there, and I'm not going to think of it so often, so sorry if my reviews this month are a little bit lower. Okay, we are now on to my last book of the month. I read Soldiers and Kings by Jason de Leon. This, like, the thing that it says on Goodreads is an intense, intimate, and first-of-its-kind look at the world of human smuggling in Latin America. And I did listen to this on audiobook, and that line is basically exactly what it is. It is a look at the world of human smuggling. Human smuggling, not human trafficking. Human smuggling is a lot different, and this is getting people from specifically Latin America in this book to across the border into the United States. It was mainly focusing on. For a lot of these people, they're coming from like islands and stuff in the Caribbean or in Southern America, so they have to first get into Mexico, and then they already have a risk of being deported from Mexico back to their country, but they also have to try to get from Mexico into the United States. And this was a look, it was really, really good. It was a look on specific lives that the journalist anthropologist studied, but also the underlying effects of why do people have such a desire to cross borders, like people craving for new lives and stuff, and just explain that through personal experiences that people have. One note that I do have is that this was a little bit hard to follow, because I think he follows like 8 people or something, and it wasn't like chronological, or maybe I just misunderstood, but I didn't think that it was chronological, because it would be like kind of jumping back and forth through all the different characters. So that for me was really hard to follow, and then I was getting stuff confused in my head, like who did it happen to? I would think that it would happen to one character, but it actually happened to the other. So that is the one thing that I say. I kind of wish that it was like a bit of like a travel, like it would like be like chronological, and then he would like explain their reasoning, and then maybe at the end there could be like a few chapters on like explaining the reasoning as a whole and like what was learned. But again, I'm not the author, and it still was really good. That's just a note that I have, is that I wish it just flowed a little bit better, but nonetheless, this is a very important topic, especially in today's climate, and just to have a little bit more compassion to other people, and learning about why do people immigrate to other places, and why human smuggling is such a big deal today and such a big industry that people are still profiting on. And also what goes wrong. He doesn't shy away from saying the bad things that happen like that. It's just like explaining why does it happen, and that what the United States does specifically with their border, it doesn't really help deter. If it does anything, it's just like adds to the body count of people who unfortunately pass away from trying to cross the border. So it was just an honest look at human life and the human desire to have a better life, while also talking about the shortcomings of the smuggling industry and how specifically women tend to be taken advantage of because the smugglers feel as though they can do anything to the woman because they're like in debt in a way. So yeah, really great book to read. I ended up giving that one 4 stars, and the audiobook itself is narrated by the author, so that is really cool because you can feel their passion about the topics that they wrote about. So those were the 9 books that I read in November. If I had to choose a favorite book from this month, it would be probably the Mickey 7 one, even though I said the shortcomings of it, but just the beginning was just so good. I did just want to give an update. I am still reading Crescent City, going along with the podcast that I've talked about from LPN, Last Podcast Network. So I highly recommend that one with Natalie Jean and Jackie Zabrowski. So I'm still going that. I think I'm up to chapter 24, which is maybe a third in. So I'm still tricking with Crescent City. I know it's controversial. I've heard a lot of people didn't like it. The author has things herself, but I've heard that people haven't liked the book itself. So far, I am really liking it. I don't read a lot of high fantasy, and I know that this isn't high fantasy, like you can definitely get much higher fantasy, but I'm so far really liking it. So thank you so much for being here for my November reading wrap-up. I hope you were able to find some inspiration for new reads. Sorry if this is a little bit more negative. I hope December will bring better reviews, but hope maybe there was still something that you were interested in reading with the books that I discussed today. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.